Welcome, everybody. Happy day 2 of virtual visit week. And I definitely look forward to getting to know you all more later in the week. I want to introduce myself. I'm Claire Trias, and I am the Student Affairs and Capstone Advisor. And in this role, my role is to support you through your MEng academic journey, through academic counseling and capstone support. In today's presentation, I am joined by my colleague, Dr. Jennifer Mangold, who you will hear from her shortly, and she just did a nice wave there. But before I go ahead and I have her speak about the capstone overview, I want to remind you all joining us today that on March 22nd, we had a really great information webinar. And I encourage you all to listen to it at some point, to check it out some point at this week, because that will really give you a great overview about the Berkeley MEng program. And I have our wonderful student assistant, Matilli, who is our Zoom technician today, and she will be monitoring the chat, and she's gonna go ahead and chat where you can find the webinar. So today's meeting will take a deeper dive on the capstone experience, and I'm very delighted to have our current student and alumni panel with us here today. And there will be plenty of time for Q&A, and we want to make it as interactive as possible and answer all of your questions. So we kindly do ask that you keep your questions until after the panel presentation. So what's exciting about the capstone experience is that you'll have an opportunity to innovate, to lead, and to problem solve, and to work on something that will one day change the world. Before I have Jennifer speak, I want to do a fun poll, which I will go ahead and launch here. So I will give everybody just a few moments to answer the poll. All right, I'll give everybody a few seconds here. People are still filling it out. All right. I think a majority of people have completed the poll. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll and share the results. Okay, so it looks like 31% of you would love to have a flight superpower. That's excellent. Telepathy, 22%. And 6% say that they already have a superpower. Well, I would be very interested to hear about your superpower, and hopefully you can tell me all about it in August when I see you. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. And now I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to my colleague, Dr. Jennifer Mangold, to introduce herself and to discuss the capstone project overview.
Thank you, Claire. And as Claire mentioned, this is going to be, I'm going to give a quick brief overview of the capstone process and what it's like and some of the key elements. But encourage you to watch the link that she mentioned, because it goes a little bit deeper into it, because we really want you to hear from the students today and get the student experience, and then have a chance for you to ask your questions as well. So I am the interim director of experiential learning for the Fung Institute. And also the director of our undergraduate program, the Fung Fellowship, which focuses on innovation in tech as well. And so what that means is I, alongside Claire, will help support your capstone experience work on getting partners to host the capstones, to get you excited about working on in different fields with different technology. So there's various ways that we want to support that experience in the background. And then also when you get here throughout the year in the foreground and working with the different teams. So Capstone really is the core of your engineering leadership journey here at MEng. And I think innovation, as Claire mentioned, is really the heart of that experience. So you're able to, develop some of those innovation skills around learning to think critically, working on a technical challenge in an environment with multiple stakeholders. And so you really get to start flexing those leadership skills alongside your technical skills, which is what makes the MEng program so exciting. And there's 3 principles that we always like to think about related to the Capstone is experience, which you see on this that I'll speak to. It's really important for your career success to be able to learn by doing and learn in an experiential environment. Lots of our undergrad and up until now, there's kind of a right answer, or there's a specific way that professor or your course is looking at on a test or in a project, but this really is more about you learning along the way. There's not a right answer to the project you're working on. The advisor, doesn't know specifically what is going to happen or what challenges that you'll face. So it's really being able to navigate that ambiguity and work as a team to really find success in your capstone project. And I think the other aspect of this is the technical piece, right? So the second principle, and every capstone has a technical component. We work hard on the back end, like I mentioned, to work with lots of different companies, from startups to research labs to larger global organizations, to really have a variety of different types of technology and technical readiness within the project, so that you get to, as I mentioned, work on that and hone that in addition to your leadership skills. And it really kind of accelerates your career as an engineering leader. The third one that I alluded to around the experience is teaming. So complex problems are always solved by effective teams, as we think about the challenges society faces today, and even more in engineering, it's very interdisciplinary. Like, these are kind of, I'm sure many of you might have heard of like wicked problems, but they're really challenging. And it's not taking one specific field or technical skill, but it's really like a blend of a lot of them. And so I think that's what really elevates your skill set when you enter into the workforce. And as you're here, we really want you to, work on and develop skills in building inclusive teams, understand how to be effective in a team environment. So that's learning to communicate, learning to listen, how to manage conflict. Conflict will come up in teams. That's normal in every team, in successful teams. So you can expect that going in, and we want to be here to help you navigate that. So this is really kind of a test bed for you to play around in and take risk and really explore these skills so that you're ready when you get into your career. If you want to move to the next slide, Claire. So that's really kind of the vision that we see for the capstone, but I'm going to get into a little bit of the logistics and how it all works before we move into our panel. So there's 3 types of projects. One is university-led, so this is supervised by UC Berkeley academic faculty or grad students or postdocs. And then we also have industry-led, and those are the ones that I alluded to at different corporations. And we've had students working at General Motors or with NASA or Siemens. And the third one that we just launched last year, which excited someone on the panel will be able to speak to, is you're able to suggest and propose your own project, which is really exciting. And students are able to then rank which one of these projects they want to work on. And so you'll have students interested in your proposal if it moves through, and more details to come around how that will work. So in March, so you're pretty soon you have access to a list of preliminary projects. We want you to see what types of projects we'll be offering next year to get an idea of what you might want to work on. Now it is preliminary, so they'll be finalized later in August. And then that's when we release the final project proposal for you to review and start thinking about concretely which ones you want to work on. And then during boot camp, we host a capstone fair. And this is you're able to meet with project advisors, learn more about the project. They're able to learn more about you. And I really want you, one of the things that's good to think about in this scenario is what skills you want to learn and what skills you want to hone, and thinking about the project in that space. It is a competitive process. So the marketplace is every student will rank their top 3 projects, and then we match you based on advisor and student preference. So we work really hard to get every student at least matched with their one of their top 3. And obviously, you know, the closer to 1 and 2 we can, we really try to do that because we want your experience to be really good while you're here and something that you really are passionate about working on. But with that said, all of the projects are amazing and the companies are amazing, and that's something that'll be fun to hear from the panel what they're working on. Next slide. And then I think, you know, like as I mentioned, that this is core to your MEng experience, and it's a chance for you to have a playground, if you will, to flex these leadership skills, flex your technical skills, work in that in a team, and navigate ambiguity with multi-stakeholders. So as Claire mentioned, it's really exciting that you're going to be, you know, working on technology and solving problems that are directly related to, you know, shaping the global world. As you can imagine, we also want them to be relevant and timely. So we've, like in the past years with COVID, we've had projects related to that. We've had projects that have worked on wildfires within California and the US when that was a challenge. So we want these to be relevant, and you're able to touch really meaningful technology and really meaningful projects that directly impact society. So I think that's my last slide, Claire.
Last one, Jennifer.
This is the one. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. This is just another plug. Again, someone on the panel is going to be able to speak to what this was like, and we're going to have this in the works, but really excited and encourage you. This is one of the ways that we want to help you all focus on innovation and entrepreneurship. And we actually launched a fast tracking founders program where we help support capstone teams who want to take some of their own projects to the next level and apply for our preliminary patent. And we want to support our students doing that. So this is another method to create value while you're here at Berkeley.
Thank you, Jennifer. So now I want to go ahead and invite our wonderful panelists to please kindly turn on their video, because we are going to kick it off with some introductions. So starting with Scott, please tell us your name, your department, your undergraduate degree, and your class year, please.
Sure. So I'm Scott Ziegler. I graduated from WMU for undergrad in 2018. I'm currently master's in engineering for mechanical engineering specifically, and I'll be graduating this year.
Kusha?
Yes, hi, my name is Kusha. I'm graduating this May. I am in IEOR, specifically management sciences and engineering. And yeah, I am doing an industry-led capstone project.
Celeste?
Hello, my name is Celeste. I went to undergrad at UC Davis, and I'm also doing mechanical engineering and a part of a student pitched capstone project.
GQ?
Hi, yeah, GQ here. Did my undergrad at Penn State in biology and graduated in 2015 from that. And I'm currently doing the MEng program for bioengineering and designing software for use in synthetic biology for my capstone.
Bohan?
Hi everyone, I'm Bohan. I graduated from UC Berkeley in 2020. I am now working as a system integration engineer in General Motors, and I'm from mechanical engineering background. Thank you.
Jessica?
Hi, I graduated from the UC Berkeley MEng program in 2021. I also did my undergrad at Berkeley in nuclear engineering, and I currently technical marketing analyst for deep isolation.
Thank you all. All right, we're going to go ahead and dive into some questions here, starting with our alumni. So this first question is for Bohan. Can you please tell us, how did working on the Capstone project help you develop your teaming and collaboration skills?
Yes. So I guess before I answer the question, I would like to just, with one sentence, introduce what my capstone was, to give the background. So my capstone at time with UC Berkeley was with General Motors to develop in-vehicle app that could show how much money the vehicle owner could save if he or she changed from a the conventional vehicle to a electric vehicle. So I had to work not only with the team members from the MEng program, but also with people from General Motors in Michigan at that time. And we need to talk to General Motors engineers for a lot of topics like vehicle behavior, vehicle data, and some engineering development method that they are using at that time to better understand the capstone project and our tasks according to the expectations. So the biggest thing from talking with the General Motors engineer, it made me feel comfortable going into a new environment and navigate quickly through the people I don't know well or I didn't know well enough to find the right person for the right question that not only I, but the team had. And aside from that, I also worked, of course, with the MEng team. So within the team, we were able to like practice how to communicate with each other. We were all engineers, so there were 4 of us, I believe, plus myself. We were all engineers from different backgrounds, and the key that to have this project be successful is to utilize everyone's talent to the right direction. So that being said, that we have people from like environment engineering, from electrical engineering, from IEOR, how can we contribute our knowledge to the right direction instead of try to confuse each other with our own knowledge. And also something that is, I think it's note to point out is when during the whole capstone time, it was when the world transferred from normal to virtual. So at that time, with my teams while sitting in Berkeley, but also I have the General Motors engineers in Michigan, we needed to figure out a way that we can conduct our meetings and workshops online efficiently. So we were able to try a lot of project management tools, like you can think of like Slacks, to help us keep on track. So special time, but very necessary skill, and not glad it happened, but it happened. So yeah, I would say like it's more like developed the skill, as the engineering say, like it's a tool under the belt. You never know when it's gonna be used, but it's better to have it.
Thank you, Bohan, for sharing. I have a quick question. So other than Slack, were there any other tools that your team used?
We mainly use Slack. We were thinking about some more professional tools like RVM tools, but it's too expensive for us. So yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing, Bohan.
Thank you.
This next question is for Jessica. Jessica, could you please tell us, how did your capstone project help you develop your project management skills, including developing your vision, scoping of the problem, and ensuring timely progress?
Hi, so I'll do the same thing as Bohan. I'll give a brief overview of what my project was. So coming from like a nuclear background, I chose a project that was more of like a melding of sort of the entrepreneurship and engineering side. So my project was an intellectual property project that was investigating the potential market case uses for a wafer-based accelerator that LBNL had patented. And so because sort of the landscape was very unknown to the engineers and the scientists that had developed the patent, our project and our group was given the freedom to sort of choose where we wanted to take the project. And it was very free-form, very loose. I think you'll find a lot of the projects that advisors develop or students propose have very structured project management timelines, as well as very structured expectations and goals. And so with the free-form, very loose project, that taught our group, especially me, how to manage a project with no specific end goal in sight. So we had to choose our own goals and basically pave our own way to accomplish those goals. And we met a lot of dead ends, and we essentially had to choose 2 or 3 different markets to focus on, as it's basically impossible to investigate all use cases for a specific kind of patent in all markets. And I think this is very, indicative of what a true project is like in the workplace, where you are given sort of like a very loose goal to reach, and you are given the task of finding your own way there. And I think in that way, I was taught sort of the project management side of an engineering project that is not, given and structured for you by an advisor. So our advisor was very helpful in bringing in other people to help it inform how we were to make that progress ourselves. But we ourselves had to make those choices instead of it being made for us.
Thank you, Jessica. Were there certain tools that you remember that your team used to communicate?
Not necessarily, because we had some international students in our group. We used WhatsApp to communicate, as well as a shared Google Drive folder in which we put all of our work in. I think every single group is required, to my memory, to make a Gantt chart, which is essentially when you're going to reach your goal, at what point in the project, when are the decision points in that project, and a final deliverable as well.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica. Just to provide some context, yes, so in 270DC, your teaming and project management class in the fall, every team is required to put together a team charter. All right, thank you, Bohan and Jessica. The next question is for our current students. So starting with Scott, can you please tell us what inspired you to propose your own capstone project?
Yeah, sure. Just a little background as well. My capstone project is focused on lunar power distribution. So when I first found out we could propose a capstone, I was like super excited. I've really liked space. I always liked those kind of different projects. I'm like a huge Trekkie. And when I was looking through the capstone lists, I saw 1 or 2 space projects, but they didn't like click really nicely. And I was like, maybe I can do something. So NASA has this thing called NSPIRES, and it lists all these different solicitations for NASA contracts, projects, centennial challenges where they're looking to see how do we fix or solve something. They actually had a call open called Break the Ice Centennial Challenge, where it was trying to figure out how to do moon mining, as you might see from my background. And I kind of like obsessed over it for a couple of weeks, trying to figure out a good solution. And I really came up with one I liked. Unfortunately, the challenge ended before our semester started, but I had it, I wouldn't let it go. So I went ahead and I proposed it, and director of experiential learning, really pushed for it. He liked the project. I was really happy to go ahead, submit it, and build a capstone project around it. So.
Thank you, Scott.
Mhm.
Celeste, this is the same question for you because you also proposed your own project. Tell us about what inspired you to do so.
Yeah, like Scott, I also got really excited to hear that we could propose our own project. And for background, our team is building a contrast therapy device. Basically, you can think of it as an ice pack that uses thermoelectrics and gets cold and hot. And this is used for a lot of therapeutic treatments. So what inspired me the most, I guess, is not only that I have this passion for healing and using thermal therapies for healing, but I was really excited for the possibility to find other students that would also be interested in joining and working on this project with me, as well as having the supportive environment at UC Berkeley and the support of professors to help us along the way. And that's been really great.
Thank you, Celeste. This next question is for Kusha. Could you please tell us a little bit about your capstone project and what are some challenges that your team has been working on and how are you overcoming this?
Yeah, absolutely. So for my capstone project, I wasn't as creative as Celeste or Scott. For our capstone project, we are actually working with an industry partner to create an interactive financial dashboard that essentially provides end users both market indicators and market sentiment through sentiment analysis. And the whole notion behind this is to help essentially democratize financial knowledge for the average investor, as the financial market can be a very complex and confusing aspect of the financial system in the US. And in terms of, I guess, some challenges, I feel like I'm currently actually working full-time and doing this program, and I've had a few years under my belt since I graduated in 2017 from undergrad. And I feel like the challenges that I've experienced in my team is kind of indicative of what I also experience at work, which is a lot of the times in undergrad, you think that, or you get projects that have a right answer and a certain steps that you must take to find the answer. Whereas for the capstone project and as a whole, there is no right answer. You're essentially given an end goal or a general end goal that you can somewhat decide. And then they give you the tools to help you reach that goal, but you're essentially, the tools are given to you, but you are expected to try to use those tools to find the best and most efficient solution. So I would say the challenges have been communicating with your team, making sure that you're constantly kind of resurfacing what the end goal is and if everyone is getting the outcome that they're expecting for this project as well.
Thank you, Kusha. This next question is for GQ. GQ, can you please tell us, how did you decide to pursue your capstone project after participating in the Capstone Info Fair, which takes place in August?
Yeah, so it was actually kind of interesting how my, I guess my capstone choice went. But I actually kind of came into UC Berkeley having an idea of the professor I wanted to work with and kind of an idea of the project I wanted to work on. Actually, for background, since everyone else gave kind of summaries of their capstone projects, for background, I am working on a software program that maps molecular interactions during enzymatic reactions in organisms, which is basically useful for genetic engineering in synthetic biology. But yeah, so either way, kind of had an idea going in what I wanted to do, but still went to a lot of different presentations during the capstone fair, which I would recommend you do as well. It'll be a very hectic time because you'll basically be moving here, you'll be doing boot camp, you'll be doing the capstone selection, but definitely recommend you attend all the presentations you can. If something like even looks slightly interesting to you, I'd highly recommend you either attend the presentation, or sometimes I'm not sure if they'll be recording again this year, but I would assume they would be. So you can watch recordings and just kind of know what you're looking for. But so I come in having an idea of what I wanted to do, and actually ended up learning about another project that I found really even more interesting. But it was funny because, you know, when I talked with the professor I was originally hoping to work with, he was very, I guess, very organized. He had a specific example of like onboarding processes that he went through, whereas the professor with the project that I kind of found more interesting really seemed like kind of disorganized, didn't really have like a clear laid out plan. So I actually ended up going with the project that I had originally been thinking of working on with the professor that seemed more organized, which is, I'm very happy I did, because I do know members who had joined the other project, and from what I heard, it's kind of very disorganized and it's difficult for them to get help when they need it. So I just say, keep in mind too, during the capstone fair, as much as you're being interviewed by the professors and the advisors, you're also interviewing them to kind of determine if it's a good fit for you.
Thank you, GQ. I want to just quickly add that the info fair that takes place in August, that is the time where students will be able to ask the direct questions to the faculty and the industry partners that are proposing projects. So this is why we highly encourage students to take advantage of the time to be prepared with questions. And please note that students in IPES and FinTech typically do not participate in the Capstone Marketplace because they are placed by their respective advisors on a project, and that takes place in early September. All right, so before we open up the Q&A, I want to ask everybody on the panel to please provide one piece of advice for the incoming cohort, and we're going to go in reverse order. So starting with Jessica, what is your advice to our incoming cohort?
So as someone who did like the MEng as like a 5th year master's, I would recommend to all MEng students that they take advantage of the vast resources that Berkeley has to offer. There are so many clubs and interests and organizations that you can join as a student, and I highly recommend that you take advantage of all of that. I think that most of my career opportunities and my connections have come from those organizations. And I know when I did the MEng, it was quite rare to find an MEng student that really delved deep into what Berkeley had to offer, whether it be sort of interest focused or hobby focused. But I think that would be my advice.
Thank you, Jessica. Bohan?
I'm actually going to say the same thing with Jessica, is just how much resource in Berkeley on campus that we're able to have. So I would just share a small story with me. My first job was a technical consulting. So what inspired me for the technical consulting was actually one, I think it's like a launch and learn thing that happened in Berkeley. It kind of like introduced me to the consulting area. So I was looking into the consulting field as my first job. But also, like Jessica mentioned, there are just so many clubs and hobbies that you can join. I know we have some like innovation club that I was able to expose for a short amount of time. But yeah, that's also something I really miss when I moved back to Michigan. Really miss the Berkeley vibe. Thank you.
Thank you, Bohan. GQ?
Yeah, so especially with the capstone process, I'd say definitely think about like what you want out of your experience at Berkeley and try and fit your capstone project selection to that. For example, for me, I was pure bio in undergrad, and at this point, biology and computer science are very integrated, and I had no computer science background at all, which is kind of why part of the reason I came to Berkeley, because that's what I wanted to learn. So I am doing software blended with biology for my capstone. But for example, like if you wanted to get involved in industry, get involved, like learn how to get involved with a startup, et cetera, something like that, maybe do like an industry project. But I'll just say, think about what you want to have your time at Berkeley and make sure your capstone project is serving that.
Thank you, GQ. Celeste?
Yeah, that's some really great advice. I wanted to say resources, but I thought of something else. How can I say this? Something that's been really great is a lot of my classes have been project-based. So while I've been trying to align my classes with my capstone project, so while I'm completing a class project, which many of the class projects you can talk to the professor and kind of tailor to your interests depending on the class. So some of my class projects, I've been directly doing work for my capstone project. So kind of doing two things at once. And that's been really great because you're doing things that you really care about and you're also learning your coursework at the same time. So that's something I would recommend, to look into your classes and see if you can align those things together, and it'll make you happy and save you some time as well.
Thank you, Celeste. Kusha?
Yeah, honestly, pretty much echoing what Celeste said. Just like follow your curiosity. I feel like a lot of the times, at least for myself, sometimes I'll say, okay, like I need to take this class and only worry about those two rather than taking other classes that might not be necessarily like direct experience to the capstone project, but something that sparks my curiosity. But I feel like one thing I would have done more so next time around, if I was to do this program again, is take other classes that I found extremely interesting, but not necessarily directly related to my capstone project, just because I feel like sometimes these classes that do spark your curiosity you are able to use some of the techniques or the ideas that you learn in those classes and implement those tools into your current capstone project.
Thank you, Kusha. Scott?
So for me, for advice, from the business side, we're all engineers, or at least most of us, but Berkeley has a great business school, HOS, and they have a lot of business resources that we can actually take use of. So in my first semester, I took a couple classes. One of them was Startup Disco, and that really helped me learn what customer discovery was. And that really helped me understand a business case for my capstone project. And from that experience, the people I've met from there and elsewhere in the business community, I've actually founded a company based on my capstone. So I highly recommend looking at the business side, the business resources Berkeley offers, and exploring those, because you'll meet some really awesome people and you might learn some really cool stuff.
Scott is correct. So MEng students are allowed to take MBA courses, and the student affairs team promotes that typically in September when those classes are released for the cohort to start to sign up. All right, so let's go ahead and now shift gears and answer some questions. So Matilli, could you please let us know what questions have come in the chat? Starting with the first one?
I think for like a good first one, probably for Scott and Celeste, is from Irina. For the students who proposed their own projects, did you work by yourself or did you find a team of students to work as a team?
So for me, I found some students. The Capstone Marketplace allows people to actually bid on what projects they want. So I was able to get 2 other team members who have been awesome and help me build out the project. And then, like Celeste suggests, if you also do classes, you can gain more people on your team, at least 1 semester at a time.
Yeah, same. I was also able to gain 2 other students to join my project. And I don't know if Scott, if you had the same experience, but you know, you really had to be influential and persuasive about the importance of your idea. And you know, especially since it was the first year that they've allowed student pitch capstone projects, you know, there were students that were quite hesitant to join. So it really, it was a really good experience actually to go through that and try to get people to join the team. And then I think you'll find that the people who do join will bring something really special because they're excited about a little bit of uncertainty and ambiguity about working with another student. And I've found that my teammates are really like self-motivated and self-starters. And so it's been a really good experience.
Thank you, Scott and Celeste. And then before we go to the next question, I just want to add that if you are interested in proposing your own capstone project, it's very important that you start early. And that discussion should happen sometime in April. And we have an interest form. That is a process that you would discuss with Dr. Jennifer Mangold. All right, next question, Matilde.
Yeah, so I guess this isn't specifically for anyone, or anyone can answer, I guess. For those who have done a senior design project during their undergrad, how is the capstone project different from it?
Does anybody want to take that question? Or maybe our alumni?
I can take it. So the capstone project is different, I believe, because it's very possible for you to choose a project that is not in your sort of area of expertise, or you can choose a project that is more interdisciplinary than I believe a senior design project can be. So in my experience, when I did a senior design project, we had like 3 to choose from, and they were highly technical, and there was a report and a presentation, and that was it. I think with the capstone, you have flexibility in both choice as well as the direction of the project itself. There are definitely projects with the capstone that have a very well-defined goals at the very end from either an advisor or an industry mentor. But for the most part, I believe everything is much more flexible and you have much more freedom. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Jessica. Next question, Matilde.
Yeah, I think this might be a good one for Kusha, but if we choose, I think they were trying to say corporate project with like an industry partner. Do we need to work with the org outside of school?
Yeah, you do. I mean, thankfully, all these industry partners that are available for the MEng program are pretty aware with like what comes with this capstone project. So they are very responsive. They are aware that you are an MEng student and you need to have a good amount of communication with them. And so, like for instance, I meet with my industry partner every Wednesday after class around 5:30. Currently it's on Zoom. I would assume once things really go back to normal, people will be able to do it in person. But the cool part is like there are small scale startups that you can work with, such as the one I'm working with, but then there are companies as big as like Assurion, Autodesk, and things of that sort.
Next, thank you, Kusha. Next question, Matilde.
Yeah, so I think we have another one for Scott or Celeste, but how do you manage the self-proposed capstone project since there's no official mentor?
So that one's a fun one. Technically, we do have a faculty advisor, but really we set scope. In the actual proposal, you'll say what you're going to be doing. And then when you get people on board, you're all students. So you kind of got to work with them and then put together milestones. kind of like the Gantt chart project management side that you do in classes, which is a great support. And then as you work through the engineering side, in our case, we plan to just do complete simulations. And we figured out we could actually just prototype. So we actually made our first prototype in December, and we're making our second one now coming up in April. So you got to be a bit free flowing, and if it's the person that's proposing, you're probably going to be the one leading it, and that's awesome, I think. So yeah, that's my experience.
Yeah, I've had a similar experience. Basically, you come in with an idea of what you'll be able to accomplish in these next 2 semesters, and you just have to communicate really well with your team. And we do have a professor who's advising us. Depending on who you pick as your advisor, they might have different styles, but for example, our advisor is very kind of hands-off, and if we need help, then he's there ready to help us, but if not, then we just keep chugging along. And so yeah, it's great it's a great experience to have to manage this project and support your team with what they need to accomplish your goals.
Thank you, Celeste. And I just wanted to clarify a few things here. So for our capstone projects, if you are on an industry-led project, you will be working with a technical expert. However, every project has a faculty member that's associated with the College of Engineering, and that's actually a requirement. So I just want to, emphasize that everybody will have either a faculty support person or also a technical expert, depending on the type of project that you're on. So I just wanted to quickly share that information. So we do have a little bit of more time for some questions. If Matilli, you can read out loud any more that has come in.
Yeah, so this one is for Kusha, and then if anyone else wants to chime in afterwards, how do you balance a full-time position with MEng? And is your full-time position part of the capstone project?
Yeah, great question. My full-time position is not part of the MEng program. So this, my full-time position was a position that I had even prior to joining the MEng program. And in terms of how I balance it, honestly, I wouldn't recommend it just because it is a good amount of work and scheduling. And I am pretty fortunate just because a lot of the classes I've had thus far have been at night. So evidently they're outside of working hours. And then the 1 or 2 classes that have been during the day, my manager at work has been extremely flexible. So I've been pretty fortunate. And then obviously there's a good amount of lack of sleep between those hours. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it unless your manager is for sure understanding, just because if they are not, I don't think it's possible, to be honest.
Yeah, I can speak to this as well. So when I did the MEng, I was working 25 hours a week in Berkeley while doing the MEng. Like Kusha, I had a very flexible manager, and every semester with a new course load, I was able to schedule sort of like working hours. So say, for example, one semester I was taking classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would work Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I think, again, like Kusha, I wouldn't recommend it. I think for me, it was a lot easier because the transition between like undergrad and grad school for me was incredibly seamless. And the time commitment, I believe, for the MEng is drastically different. And so if you believe you can manage all of that as well as sort of make the most of the MEng experience and organizations and networking, then sure, go ahead. But I think for the most part, until you can really acclimate yourself to the entire student living experience, you only have a year to make the most of the MEng. I would recommend not doing it.
Yeah, one other thing was that for me, at least, it was on Zoom as well. So that makes it a lot easier than having to commute to class every day.
Thank you, Jessica and Kusha, for sharing your experience. And from an academic standpoint, we do not recommend students hold a full-time job because it is a very intense program. And technically, it's 9 months long. All right, we have time for one more question. Matilde, is there any other questions that have come in?
Yeah, so this is for just all alumni and current students. So they're curious about what electives you guys have taken and if you've had any trouble like registering for classes that you need or like would like to take in the future.
I guess I can answer this. I did take electives outside of the MEng classes, and I did not have any roadblocks registering classes. It's pretty have the freedom to register any class you'd like. Claire, please correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm sorry, Rohan, I didn't hear the question.
Oh, I just saying that please correct me if I speak anything wrong. But from my experience, I didn't have any roadblocks.
Yeah, it depends on the class. So, for the leadership courses, every student is guaranteed a spot in the required classes. When you're looking at the class schedule, if it's open to a graduate student, yes, you can go ahead and proceed to enroll. But we cannot guarantee that you'll get into those classes that are, non-leadership classes. Is there anybody else that would like to take on this question? Maybe GQ, you want to take that on?
Yeah, sure. So I'm not sure which subset of the MEng degree you're looking for, Irina. But like I said, I'm BioE, so I've taken a course on computational biology, did one on functional genomics, synthetic biology. That was all fall. And then this semester I'm taking data science for cellular biology, machine learning for chemical and molecular problems, machine learning for computational biology, and probabilistic modeling. You don't have to take that many, like that's just, I really like what I do, so I'm taking a lot. With the enrollment process, we had a lot of students this year because a lot of people deferred because of COVID. And generally things were pretty hectic scheduling at first, but kind of as the drop deadlines and stuff and the time passed, things kind of settled down, and I was able to get all of the classes I wanted, and I think a lot of people are able to get most, if not all, of the ones that they want after the people who kind of like see the class and then decide it's not for them would drop it.
Okay, GQ. So we are about out of time here. So I want to go ahead and thank the panelists for joining us today and for sharing your experiences. And I want to let you all know that the conversation doesn't stop here. You can always reach out to our panelists. They can be reached on LinkedIn. And please continue the conversation. Don't hesitate to reach out to me or Jennifer if you have any questions. And a couple of reminders here for you is we have a wonderful QR code here that will take you directly to our admit webpage, which is where you'll find a plethora of information. And I hope to see you at our next virtual visit week programs. The fun doesn't stop here. There's more to come. And also please remember to respond to your offer by April 15th. And we really hope to see you in August. Thank you so much, and go Bears.